Hi, everyone, and a very warm welcome to all of you to this episode of All Things Lean with your host, Madhulika Rajahan. In our last episode, we talked about stage 3 in the design thinking process, ideate. In this episode, we will talk about stage 4 in the design thinking process, which is prototype. One of the best ways to gain insights in a design thinking process is to carry out some form of prototyping. This method involves producing an early, inexpensive, and scaled down version of the product in order to reveal any problems with the current design. Prototyping offers designers the opportunity to bring their ideas to life, test the practicability of the current design, and to potentially investigate how a sample of users think and feel about a product. Prototypes are often used in the final testing phase in a design thinking process in order to determine how users behave with the prototype, to reveal new solutions to problems, or to find out whether or not the implemented solutions have been successful. The results generated from these tests are then used to redefine one or more of the problems established in the earlier phase of the project and to build a more robust understanding of the problems users may face when interacting with the product in the intended environment. When designers want to determine and understand exactly how users will interact with the product, the most obvious method is to test how the users interact with the product. It would be foolhardy and pointless to produce a finished product for the users to test. Instead, designers can provide simple, scaled-down versions of their products, which can then be used in order to observe, record, judge, and measure user performance levels based on specific elements, or the user's general behavior, interactions, and reactions to the overall design. These earlier versions are known as prototypes. They are not necessarily in the medium of the finished product, as this may not be cost effective in terms of time or money. Prototypes are built so that designers can think about their solutions in a different way, tangible products rather than abstract ideas, as well as to fail quickly and cheaply so that less time and money is invested in an idea that turns out to be a bad one. Tim Brown, CEO of the international design and innovation firm IDEO, said it best. They slow us down to speed us up. By taking the time to prototype our ideas, we avoid costly mistakes such as becoming too complex, too early, and sticking with a weak idea for far too long. For instance, when developing a software, a design team may produce a number of paper prototypes, as we see in the image in the next page, which the user can gradually work through in order to demonstrate to the design team or evaluators how they may tackle certain tasks or problems. When developing tangible devices such as computer mouse, designers may use a number of different materials to enable them to test the basic technology underlying the product. With advances in 3D printing technology, producing prototypes is now often a more instant and low-cost process, and as a result, this has allowed designers to provide stakeholders with accurate and testable or usable replica models before setting up a particular design. Prototyping methods are generally divided into two separate categories: low and high fidelity prototyping. Let's talk about low fidelity prototyping right now. Low fidelity prototyping involves the use of basic models or examples of the product being tested. For example, the model might be incomplete and use just a few of the features that will be available in the final design, or it might be constructed using materials not intended for the finished article, such as wood, paper, or metal for a plastic product. Low fidelity prototypes can either be models that are cheaply and easily made or simply recounts or visualizations of them. Examples of low fidelity prototypes can be storyboarding, sketching. Although Bill Buxton, a pioneer of human-computer interaction, argues sketching is not an example of prototyping. Then we come to card sorting and Wizard of Oz. Let's look at the pros and cons of low fidelity prototyping. Pros of low fidelity prototyping: it can be quick and inexpensive, possible to make instant changes and test new iterations, disposable or throwaway, enables the designer to gain an overall view of the product using minimal time and effort, as opposed to focusing on the finer details over the course of slow, incremental changes. Available to all. Regardless of ability and experience, we are able to produce rudimentary versions of products in order to test users or canvass the opinions of stakeholders. Encourages and fosters design thinking. Some of the cons of low fidelity prototyping are an inherent lack of realism. Due to the basic and sometimes sketchy nature of lo-fi prototypes, the availability or applicability of results generated by tests involving simple versions of a product may lack validity. Depending on your product, the production of low-fidelity prototypes may not be appropriate for your intended users. For instance, if you are developing a product bound by a number of contextual or dispositional constraints, that is, physical characteristics of your user base, such as users with disabilities, then basic versions that do not reflect the nature, appearance, or feel of the finished product may be of scant use, revealing very little about the eventual user experience. Such prototypes often remove control from the user, as they generally have to interact on a basic ways or simply inform an evaluator, demonstrate, or write a blow-by-blow account of how they would use the finished product. High-fidelity prototypes are prototypes that look and operate closer to the finished product. For example, a 3D plastic model with movable parts, allowing users to manipulate and interact with the device in the same manner as the final design, is hi-fi in comparison to, say, a wooden block. Likewise, an early version of a software system developed using a design program such as Sketch or Adobe Illustrator is a high fidelity in comparison to a paper prototype. Let's look at some of the pros and cons of high fidelity prototyping. The pros of high fidelity prototyping. First, it is engaging. The stakeholders can instantly see their vision, realize, and will be able to judge how well it meets their expectations, wants, and needs. User testing involving hi-fi prototypes will allow the evaluators to gather information with a high level of validity and applicability. The closer the prototype is to the finished product, the more confidence the design team will have in how people will respond to, interact with, and perceive the design. Some of the cons of high fidelity prototyping are they generally take longer to produce than the lo-fi prototypes. When testing prototypes, test users are more inclined to focus and comment on superficial characteristics, such as opposed to the content. After devoting hours and hours of time producing an accurate model of how a product will appear and behave, designers are often loath to make changes. Software prototypes may give test users a false impression of how good the finished article may be. Making changes to prototypes can take a long time, thus delaying the entire project in the process. However, a lo-fi prototypes can usually be changed within hours, if not minutes. For example, sketching or paper prototyping methods are utilized. Due to the pros and cons of lo-fi and hi-fi prototyping, it should be no surprise that low-fidelity prototyping is the usual option during the early stages of design thinking project, while high-fidelity prototyping is used during the later stages when the test questions are more refined. It is important to remember that prototypes are supposed to be quick and easy tests of design solutions. Here are a few guidelines that will help you in the prototyping stage. Just start building. Design thinking has a bias towards action, which means if you have any uncertainties about what you are trying to achieve, your best bet is to just make something. Creating a prototype will help you think about your idea in a concrete manner and potentially allow you to gain insights into ways you can improve it. Don't spend too much time. Prototyping is all about speed. The longer you spend building your prototype, the more emotionally attached you can get with your idea, thus hampering your ability to objectively judge its merits. Remember what you are testing for. All prototypes should have a central testing issue. Do not lose sight of that issue, but at the same time, do not get so bound to it so as to lose sight of other lessons you could learn from it. Build with the user in mind. Test the prototype against your expected user behaviors and needs. Then learn from the gaps in expectations and realities and improve your ideas. Let's look at the takeaways from this session. Prototyping can be a quick and effective way of bringing you and your client's ideas to life. A sample of your intended users or evaluators can then be observed and tested, and their opinions can be used to make improvements during an iterative design process. Prototyping methods are generally classified into one of the two broad categories: low fidelity or high fidelity. In the former, simple versions are produced, sometimes with whatever materials are available, which can be tested immediately. In contrast, high fidelity methods are generally closer to the final product in terms of look, feel, and means of interaction. While hi-fi prototypes can help the design team gain valuable insights into how the product will be received when distributed, production of hi-fi prototypes can be time-consuming and can have the potential to significantly delay a project should changes need to be made. Therefore, designers have a number of different prototyping methods at their disposal, but they are drawbacks associated with both of these broad categories of testing methods. And this must be taken into consideration when deciding how best to improve your design within the allotted time frame and budget. With this, we come to an end to this episode of All Things Lean. We will continue to talk about design thinking in more details in our upcoming sessions. Don't forget to like and subscribe and comment in the comment section on what you'd like to hear more. Until next time, this is your host, Madhulika Rajohan, signing off. Have a wonderful day ahead.